All right, Chris, I got a great idea before we talk about running backs. We did the all Halloween team. We got to do an all candy team. I know Halloween's over, but still, come on. Look, I got a great list here. How about Ollie, Pop, Gordon, Chuba, Hubba, Bubba, Hubbard?
Okay, hold on. This is going too far. I think we need to stop before the show jumps the shark here.
All right, well, let's just get into the football matchups. It's what you're here for. It's week 10. Running back starts it. Let's figure out who should be in your lineup. Once again, 4 teams will be off. It's the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Titans. And of course, we start out with the must starts. These running backs, there's no question. You got them, you start them. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, and James Cook. Before we break down the matchups, don't forget, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. We're on the way to 100K. We appreciate every single one of you. So let's start with a Thursday night matchup. This week, it's going to be the Raiders taking on the Broncos in Mile High. All right, so Ashton Genty didn't quite get that post-bye bump. I mean, he was fine. Like, he did something for you, but it was all about Brock Bowers. And now you got to wonder, is Ashton Genty still going to have that potential to be an elite fantasy running back, or is he just kind of good?
Well, I think this week he's going to definitely be more just kind of good and maybe borderline good. I'm a little nervous here on the road against the Broncos, of course. Plus, 63% of his runs are zone runs, and he averages 2 yards per carry more on zone runs versus man gap runs. The Broncos are the 4th toughest on zone runs, and they've only allowed 1 touchdown all year on zone runs. But that being said, this guy gets the volume. He could always score on a reception like he did last week, so it's not like you should bench him here even in a tough matchup. But I think this week I can only say solid.
Agree. On the road against that tough defense, I can't go more than solid. I mean, I know you highlighted this. You've talked about it a couple of weeks now. Genty does not have a great schedule the rest of the season, and this is part of it. So, I mean, he's a guy who you just don't take out of your lineup, but don't expect a huge game. The one encouraging thing is he's been used more and more as a pass catcher, and that's where really he was more effective last week. He had more receiving yards than rushing yards. I mean, it's hard to say in this game exactly how much he'll get to carry the ball. But at the same time, like I said, he's getting enough touches. There's no competition here. He's a very solid pick. Now that Broncos backfield, we still got J.K. Dobbins kind of as the 1A, the early down back. That rookie R.J. Harvey is mainly used as a pass catcher. But I'm curious how you feel like this backfield's going to look in this matchup.
I think it's going to look pretty much how we've seen it look. J.K. Dobbins is going to be the lead back and to get most of the carries, do most of the heavy lifting, and then R.J. Harvey is going to catch some passes and maybe somehow continue to score a touchdown on extreme limited touches here. But this is a good matchup at home against the Raiders. Can't feel great about Dobbins because, again, he's not catching passes and somehow he's not scoring and RJ Harvey is. But I'm going to say Dobbins a strong flex this week in this matchup. I'm going to say Harvey a flex. I know Harvey's been outscoring Dobbins again because of those touchdowns. But, man, he still only played 31% of the snaps last week. Like, if he doesn't score, you're not getting much here. So just a flex for me.
Well, I'll say this. I agree. Dobbins is a flex, a pretty good flex option here. It's kind of annoying that he is doing a lot of that heavy lifting and it's not paying off, especially in the end zone. Like, he's been good, not great. I kind of wonder if this is one of those things where, the takeover for a rookie doesn't always happen like instantaneously, right? It's like there's a week where all of a sudden he's the guy. Sometimes it's gradual. I feel like it's slowly shifting towards Harvey, again, mainly as a receiver. But look, in PPR leagues, the receptions, the yardage there, and the touchdowns all together, I feel like it makes him a little bit more valuable than Dobbins at this point. So in this matchup, I slightly favor Harvey. I almost want to go solid, but I'll just say I think is a high-end flex. All right, then on Sunday, back overseas, another Europe game that's going to be early on Sunday, and it's going to be the Falcons taking on the Colts. Well, the Falcons, regardless of what he's looked like the last couple weeks, you still start Bijan, all right? You still do it, and you still start JT, no questions asked. So I guess the only running back to talk about here is Tyler Algier.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's barely startable, even in like really good matchups where you feel like maybe he can get involved. This doesn't feel like one of those. You can't start Tyler Algier.
No, like maybe when they played the Dolphins a couple weeks ago and that barely worked out for you, there's no reason to start Algier this week. Now, before we get to the rest of the Sunday slate, let me remind you that this is a great time to sign up for Underdog and get your picks in if you haven't yet, because if you sign up as a new customer and you use code ENDGAME, you get a free pick. All right, it's a gimme. And then you also get an extra $100 in bonus funds when you play $5 towards any pick. That's on top of the $1,000 worth of bonus cash that you could potentially get when you make your first deposit. The free picks, the bonus funds, all of that comes if you sign up for Underdog as a new customer. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME when you check out. All right, let's start off with a divisional matchup here. We're going to have the Saints taking on the Panthers in Carolina. All right, so Alvin Kamara, just going to assume he's still a Saint at the time of this game. And you know what? I don't even know if we're aware that he's there anymore. Like, does he still even exist in fantasy?
I mean, he does for plenty of people because he's still being started. I don't understand why. This guy's only got 3 games all season where he's even hit double-digit PPR points. 3 straight games of 6.5 or less points. I said last week, no way, no chance. He was somehow worse in week 9. How can you start him? How can you do it?
Look, part of me wonders if maybe this was them trying to preserve him just in case they do get a trade done. They're listening to those calls and, kind of got him to warm up to the idea. But if Kamara's still a Saint, I mean, look, what? Like, who else is getting the ball here? I feel like he's going to have to get more involved this week. I got to think that new head coach Kellen Moore actually wants to try to win games. I'm going to just say possibly a low-end flex if you need him. Then on the Panthers side, I mean, thankfully, we have our solution. Just give Rico the ball and good things happen. I've got to think Dave Canales saw what happened and he's like, let's do that again.
Why can't every coach be like Dave Canales? It's like, hey, we have this guy who's playing really, really well. Let's commit to him no matter how much we paid this other guy. I mean, it's working, right? It is working. Rico Dowdle has been awesome since, they committed to him, and last week he was awesome. No worries at all here. He's got to be a strong start, but then because of that, there is no way you can start Chuba Hubbard.
I mean, look, this is just another case against giving these guys who are sort of like one-year wonders at running back these big contracts. You got to wonder, is Chuba running this bad because he's still kind of hurt, or is it because he got paid, or what? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Rico is fired up. He's the guy who's running. He's looking like one of the best running backs in the league. I mean, you pretty much have to start him.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
This week, the Giants are going to take on the Bears at Soldier Field. And so these two backfields are going complete opposite directions here. I mean, we knew that the G-Men would be missing Cam Scatterboo, but man, Tyrone Tracy, that turned out to be a pretty big bust on the waiver wire. Or do you think that maybe he gets better this week? Because we saw more Devin Singletary than we saw of Tracy.
Why would he get better? It's not like he was coming back from an injury and working back in. Like, he should be better already, and he wasn't. Devin Singletary was better last week. Had more carries. Now Tracy did run more routes and did technically have 2 more targets, so at least he has that. But how good can we feel about either of these guys? Even though this is a good matchup, this is as close to a split as you can pretty much get, and this isn't an offense where it's like, yeah, they can support both these guys. These are both just flexes, and only because it's a good matchup.
Exactly it. If this was against a tough run defense, you could probably just sit them both out, but only because it is the Bears' run defense. I mean, look, Tracy looked pretty bad, and he's honestly not looked good all year, which is why he lost the job to Scatterboo. Kind of tried to warn people, yeah, you pick up a guy like that, you take a chance, right? You hope that he comes through. He's had an opportunity, and he has not taken advantage. But that said, if you need a flex, I guess you could pick one of these guys. Now, on the other end, we got the Bears. Their running game just keeps looking better, but now we have a dilemma. What if DeAndre Swift comes back, which is very likely, I would think, and not a serious injury? Well, then what does this backfield look like? Because Kyle Monungai went off last week as we thought he might, but then again, like, it was the Bengals.
Right. This doesn't feel like some people saying like, oh, DeAndre Swift, he's going to get Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard did however you say it. But let's be real. Like, Kyle Monangai hasn't put together like 2 incredible games, and it wasn't like DeAndre Swift was bad before he missed last week. DeAndre Swift's been pretty good this year, at least recently here. And this is a great matchup, though, against the Giants. I do think if Swift plays, he is still the guy here. I think it might be a little bit closer to a 50-50 after what Monangai did last week, but I still believe Swift is a guy. So I think if he plays, he's solid because it's such a good matchup. But I'll say this is a good enough matchup where I feel good about Monangai, even if Swift plays, that he's at least a strong flex.
Yeah, I mean, I wish this was a situation like the Rico, Chuba one where it was just a guy like they would commit to. Because this is a great matchup, I was actually shocked to learn now, say like the Bengals are the worst run defense. The Giants actually give up more yards per carry to running backs than the Bengals after this past week. This is a smash spot again. So I'm going to say, look, if DeAndre Swift comes back, I think he's a solid start. And if Monangai, I think whether Swift comes back or not, he's also a solid start. Now let's talk Jags at Texans. All right, so this Jags backfield didn't really change much. Etienne's still clearly the lead guy. It's a little better last week, but do you feel any better about this offense as a whole? And again, they're facing the Texans here on the road.
Yeah, that's the issue here. Like, look, Etienne should have had a monster game. I mean, he felt like he got stopped at like the inch line multiple times last week. And it's kind of annoying that Tootin got the touchdown, even though his role didn't change. In fact, Etienne's role, that was the best usage he had of the entire season. Like, they didn't come out of the bye saying we're going to give Tootin the ball more. They came out of the bye saying we're going to give Etienne the ball more. But this is a terrible matchup on the road against the Texans. I'm just going to say Etienne a strong flex only because of the volume, and Tootin, no way I'm starting that guy against this matchup.
Well, to be fair, Tootin did score a touchdown. I think I saw him on the field enough to think he can cling to flex value. He's out there in passing downs, and he does have that big play ability, right? He can take him to the house, hypothetically. I don't feel great about him in this matchup, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to start him, but he's an option. And Etienne, I don't feel great about him either. I'm just going to put him down as a high-end flex because, again, the Texans, elite pass defense, but also really, really good run defense. They allow 3.8 yards per carry to running backs. I don't feel a big Etienne game here. Not sure if you're feeling a big game from any Texans running back these days or this season. But we got Woody Marks and we got Nick Chubb still. Do you prefer one?
I think you got to prefer Woody Marks. He did technically out-snap Nick Chubb, although Nick Chubb, I think, had like 1, maybe 2 more carries in him. But look, the Jags, they are a sneaky good run defense, but they can be attacked, running backs through the air in the passing game. That's more Woody Marks. So I don't love it here, but they are at home. So I'll say Woody Marks a flex in PPR only. Nick Chubb, this is like touchdown or bust, and I'm thinking bust.
Exactly what I thought might happen last week with that Texans backfield is pretty much what happened. And exactly what you just said about this matchup is exactly how we feel. You could flex Marks if you need to, and there's still no reason to start Chubb. Ravens taking on the Vikings in Minnesota this week. All right, so he hasn't quite snuck back into the absolute must-start category, but Derrick Henry, it's got to be close, right?
He's got to be right. Like borderline must start here with Lamar back and healthy and the defense improving. This defense, I mean, I'm not going to say they're elite, but they're at least not one of the worst defenses anymore. And the way you attack this Vikings defense is on the ground. This should be a very good Derrick Henry week. Strong start.
Exactly. No issues here. Again, only if the Ravens happen to be playing from way behind does Henry struggle. He just doesn't get enough touches. I don't see the Vikings jumping out way ahead here. Anybody remember back in was it week 3, week 4, everyone's ready to get rid of Henry and sell him? I hope you either didn't do that or you bought low. Now for the Vikings, Aaron Jones back and he was looking pretty good, but more injuries. He's got a shoulder thing, a toe thing. Now apparently they're minor issues. He's saying he thinks he's going to play. So assuming he does play with no limitations here in week 10, do you like Aaron Jones better than Jordan Mason?
You have to. He was absolutely dominating everything. Snaps, carries, routes, target, everything. He was dominating this backfield before that injury. I know that I just said the Ravens defense is getting better, but I'm still not scared of this Ravens defense. I think if he plays, he's good to go. He's got to be a solid start. Jordan Mason, I'm going to say if Aaron Jones plays, I'm not starting Jordan Mason here. This is also feels like touchdown or bust right now. But if Aaron Jones does miss, then yes, he can be flexed, I guess.
just shows how quickly things change here. Again, said it when Mason was the only guy and he was looking fairly good for those few games earlier in the season. It was the time to sell high. At this point, I think he's barely startable, and only because you're like, maybe he'll score a touchdown. So again, kind of like with all these other guys that say like barely a flex, it's only if you really need him. And as far as Aaron Jones goes, I mean, he looked good. Looked like that time off did him pretty well. He is the pass catching back here in this offense. They're going to continue to use him. So as long as he's good to go, I think he could be on the low end of solid. Bills get to take on the Dolphins this week. You got Achane, you got James Cook, you start them. I mean, the only other running back who might possibly have value here, I guess, would be Ollie Gordon. But I'm going to go with no.
I'm going to go with no as well. I know it's the Bills and they're not great against the run, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, but the Dolphins aren't great at the run, so there's that. And they always get trounced by the Bills. I don't care that they're at home. All right, now the Browns at the Jets. These are two teams both coming off their bye week. So let's start with Quinshon Judkins. Not coming off his most successful run here. He'd been banged up, not his best last couple of games. Are you still just as high on Judkins?
Long term, yes. I talked about him on the buy low. If you've seen that, I talked about his schedule is fantastic, but not this week against the Jets. Look, 61% of his runs are man gap runs. Jets, 17th toughest versus these runs. They've been kind of quietly a good run defense, and this could legitimately be the lowest scoring game of the week. I mean, could he even score a touchdown? Maybe, but he gets the volume, so I'm going to say solid, but low end solid.
Well, I'm going to put him on the high end of the solid tier because it's not like he needs a post-bye bump. He already had taken over the entire backfield here, but, had that week off to rest and prep. And this is, like you said, probably not going to be a high-scoring game, especially on the Jets side, because the Browns have a legit defense, unlike the Bengals. This works in his favor. They can establish the run, right? They can run potentially from ahead. So I think this is a great spot for Judkins. Jets defense has been better recently. They're still not going to shut down, I don't think, a guy like Judkins. But then the man everyone's been talking about, a lot of teams wanting maybe Breece Hall, probably still going to be a Jet here. So if he is, against this number one run defense of the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to guess he doesn't do what he did right before the bye.
No, this isn't quite the Bengals here. They're allowing the second fewest points to running backs and just 3.8 yards per carry on zone runs. He's a very heavy zone run guy. 70% of his runs are zone runs. But he's still the guy here. He still catches passes. He's got that big playability. I'm just going to say a strong flex here.
And I'll be just a little higher. I think he's solid because, again, he's going to be the guy. So, he's still there getting all the touches. He's still got that big playability. I still prefer a guy who's getting, not only the lion's share of the touches, but has that upside, right? That home run ability. This is probably not going to be a high scoring game, but again, at least they should be able to establish the run, or at least try to commit to the run, because, I doubt that the Browns are going to be up big either. Patriots taking on the Bucs this week. Tampa coming off of their bye week. All right, so now we get to figure out what's going to go on in New England. Ramondre missed last week. Could be back with that toe issue. Trayvon Henderson got his shot. It was okay. It was just fine, right? It wasn't horrible, right? He wasn't, the guy who broke out. He was just I don't know. Now I feel even worse because I want to just say either that's it, he's dead, they're never going to commit to him, or this was the breakout. And now I don't even know what to say about Henderson.
Yeah, he was okay. I mean, I think the issues here are has not been very good in pass protection, and he's not breaking a lot of tackles. And the thing is, the Patriots, he should be getting a lot of outside zone runs where he can use that speed, but Mike Vrabel and the Patriots and Josh McDaniel, they love this man gap scheme. That's what all these running backs use. Not really suited for Trayvon Henderson's skill set. I'm going to say if Ramondre does come back and play this week, he's just a flex. Bucs with Vita Vea, 12th toughest on those man gap runs. Henderson, I think with or without Ramondre, a risky flex, because it's not like he dominated the touches here. And then, I know Terrell Jennings scored, but if you're thinking about Terrell Jennings, I don't know about that. He really hardly played.
Yeah, I wish I could just not have to think about this backfield. Again, it's a tough matchup. Like you said, I think on both sides, the run defenses are pretty solid. This might come down to the quarterbacks battling each other. So I say just a flex, whether it's Ramondre or Henderson, not Jennings. And now the speculation starts. Will Bucky Irving come back in week 10? Don't know right now, but if he does, how good do you feel about him against this Pats run defense? And then what does that mean for Rachaad White?
Well, you can't feel great because this is a very good Patriots run defense, but Bucky Irving catches passes. He's so involved. I mean, if Bucky Irving comes back this week, you're probably playing Bucky Irving. He should be very solid this week. And if he does come back, that means Rachaad White goes back to just pretty much being a high-end handcuff. You can't start him.
Well, I would think based on the injury that even, if Bucky is playing, Rachaad White gets a decent amount of touches. I think he retains flex value, but that's it. But if Bucky plays, I want to play him, even if it's not a great spot. He always has that big play potential, that touchdown upside, etc. So I think he's at least solid. This week, the Cardinals going to take on the Seahawks. So here's another potential return. Trey Benson eligible to come off IR. So if that does happen, what goes down in this Cards backfield?
Well, if he comes back, I'm just going to say a risky flex this week. This is not a good matchup against the Seahawks defense on the road. Coming off a pretty significant injury, you got to be a little worried here. So I'm just going to say a risky flex. And then, look, Bam Knight, Amari Demercado actually kind of was getting more run than Bam Knight. I don't even know what's going on here. So I'm just going to sit whoever the other running back is if it's not Trey Benson.
If Trey Benson doesn't come back, I think Bam Knight at least retains flex potential just because he'll be the guy. Demercado, don't care. If Trey Benson comes back, he can't be more than a flex because even if you promised me he's getting at least 15 touches, this Seattle run defense, as you mentioned, has been pretty elite all season long. You saw what they just did, on Sunday night to the Commanders. They've been doing this to opposing run offenses all year long, so just a flex. And then that Seattle backfield is pretty much the same. I'm guessing we can't go more than flex for either Walker or Charbonnet.
No, but look, I don't know if it was just because the game, this game was out of hand in the first quarter, it felt like. I don't know what was going on, but Kenneth Walker got all the inside the 5 carries here. He actually got more usage in Charbonnet. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? But are you ready to bet on that? I don't know. I'll say he's just a flex because if they have committed more to him, he at least does have upside, and the Cardinals' run defense doesn't scare me at all. And then based on what we saw last week, I have to move Charbonnet down to a risky flex because if this is now the new thing going forward, Charbonnet is going to become more of just a handcuff again.
Well, let's see if this is the new thing. I think they're both still just barely flexes. Keep in mind, yeah, you're right as far as those inside the 10 carries, but there was only, I think, 3 of them, and even tight end AJ Barner got a carry and a touchdown near the goal line. I just don't want to rely on this offense. And then Rams at Niners, CMC, still a go. Kyren Williams, pretty much full systems go as well if you've got him, right?
Yeah, this isn't a great matchup, but look, now they just lost rookie defensive lineman. I'm talking about the 49ers, Michael Williams. This is crazy. It's like every week they lose a key piece of this defense. I can't ever recall a team being hit this hard by injuries. It's absolutely insane. He was still the guy last week, 60% of attempts, 41% of the routes. He can always score. He's got to be very solid this week.
Right. We loved Kyren last week. He smashed, but this is not the Saints defense. It's still a good matchup. He still gets most of the carries. You got Kyren, you feel pretty good. And this week, the Commanders going to try to redeem themselves at home, but they have to face the Detroit Lions. Now, despite last week, Jahmyr Gibbs, you still just start him, right? I think we can forgive him one bad game. What about Montgomery there in the Detroit backfield? This is looking now like a very tasty matchup.
Yeah, pretty good matchup here. You got to think after last week, he got more run. It was weird. Jahmyr Gibbs' usage was weird last week. I got to think we're going to go back to what we saw prior to that with more Jahmyr Gibbs here. But this is a good matchup. This Commanders defense is absolutely terrible. Hit by injuries now. No Jaden Daniels. The Lions should be winning comfortable. Monty's always got touchdown upside. This is a kind of matchup where I'm going to call Monty solid.
Exactly. Back to being rock solid, like you said. The Commanders, you can understand the struggles on offense. Terry's barely played. JD in and out of the lineup. So many injuries. The defense really has no excuse. Like, what is going on with that Dan Quinn defense? But it's looking pretty bad. Monty should be totally fine. And as far as that offense goes, I mean, maybe the most disappointing part of it has been Jacory Krosky-Merritt. Not just that he hasn't done much, but now all of a sudden last week we got Chris Rodriguez looking like the better running back. Is Bill just no longer a thing?
No longer a thing for me. He's a sit this week without hesitation. Hasn't even reached 6 PPR points in each of the last 4 games. How can you start this guy?
I've been trying to be optimistic here, and I was not one of the Bill truthers that are out there, but you got to take a chance on a rookie who's getting his opportunity, and that time has now passed. Then for the nightcap, we're going to have the Steelers taking on the Chargers. So Jaylen Warren last week doing his best Kareem Hunt impression. Lots of carries, very little yardage, and yet 2 touchdowns. Now, he'll probably be a little different in this matchup, but exactly how good do you feel about him?
Well, this is actually a sneaky good spot for Jaylen Warren. 74% of his runs are zone runs. Chargers actually allow the 4th highest yards per carry on those zone runs. But, okay, I worried last week about game script, but somehow the Steelers defense shut down the Colts. I'm not buying into the Steelers defense suddenly being elite. I think the Chargers are going to be fine here in this game. So he may get game scripted out, but he's a guy. He gets chances to score, but I can only say risky solid in this matchup.
I'll actually put Warren as solid too. I mean, you got to think the Chargers will up their game compared to last week, but still, this is not like a shutdown run defense. Maybe I need to start coming around a little bit on Warren. It's kind of odd because, throughout the season, he had been getting a decent amount of opportunity, right? Double-digit carries, and he's been very efficient, but just hadn't been scoring touchdowns. And all of a sudden, last week, what happens? Inefficient running, and he scores 2 touchdowns. He'll probably fall somewhere in between, but yeah, I like the fact that he is still pretty much taking over this backfield, so I'll call him solid, more than a flex. Now, Kamani Vidal wasn't so great last week. Thought it might be a good spot for him. So first of all, what gives? And second of all, can he do better against this Steelers defense that did look better last week?
Well, I don't know. I mean, first of all, you look at it, 57% of his runs are those zone runs. I've talked about this a couple times with him. Steelers 6th toughest on these runs. Not to mention, Joe Alt re-injured that ankle. Definitely not playing this week. We don't even know if he's going to come back anytime soon, honestly. Might need surgery, they're saying, on the ankle. So now the offensive line is taking a big hit here. And then we didn't see a ton of Jarrett Patterson, but we saw more Jarrett Patterson. So I'm a little nervous here for Vidal in this matchup, but the Chargers are at home. They should win. He's got touchdown upside. Again, I'm going to say like low-end, risky, solid here.
Yeah, on the one hand, we are hearing now that, as we thought, Omari Hampton probably not coming back till week 13 at the earliest, or like, hey, you feel better about Vidal. But now all of a sudden, Jared Patterson, right, this journeyman cast off from the Lions, all of a sudden he's getting snaps. I mean, look, Vidal is not going to be a workhorse back. He's not built to be a guy that gets 100% of the snaps. I get it. I think he's still getting enough opportunities in a good offense. He's got to be at least more than a flex, so I'll say solid. It's not a great matchup. Don't expect a great game, but he's a pretty good choice here. Then Monday Night Football, we got the Eagles taking on the Packers. You got Josh Jacobs. Take your touchdowns and be happy with him in your lineup. Now, Saquon Barkley, we still can't put him back as an auto start. Sure, he had a huge game before the bye, but also had some sort of an injury issue. He kind of downplayed it, but are you concerned?
I'm not concerned. I mean, look, if he's missing practices, then I'll start getting concerned. But until then, I'm not concerned. This isn't the best spot, not nearly as good a spot as he had before the bye, but this is Saquon Barkley. You're not benching Saquon Barkley, right? He's a strong start.
I'm not benching Saquon Barkley, like you said, unless he's questionable heading into the weekend. But yeah, I know the Packers, good defense. Saquon Barkley, great running back. I got him. I'm starting him. And then on the chance that perhaps Barkley doesn't play or is limited, is Tank Bigsby an option?
If Barkley's completely out, maybe, but probably not.
I'll say if Barkley's completely out, I could consider flexing Tank, but I don't expect that to happen. All right, those are all the running backs you need to know about for Week 10. We got you covered at every other position as well. This week's playlist is right here.